Hey, what's up YouTube? It's abluegolfball here today with another Pokemon TCG Online video. I will be opening packs soon for the Roaring Skies set, but for now I have a Flygon EX deck. I guess this will kick off the Roaring Skies era for my YouTube channel. But Flygon EX is a 170 HP dragon type Pokemon. It's got the ability Voice of the Sands. It's basically like a pseudo catcher effect. It's kind of a, well, it's more like an escape rope minus the switching for you, for your Pokemon. I guess it's kind of like Swellow with drive off in a sense, but you have to be in the active spot. And this is actually pretty good for scenarios where you're playing against Pyroar or Donphan, Gengar EX, things like that, and you can cause your opponent to switch. And let's say your opponent switches into a Robo Substitute, you can use Voice of the Sands and bring him back out and then hit him. So there's something like that. It could be scenarios for things like Rocky Helmet, Rock Guard, Life Dew, Pokemon that you don't really want to attack, so you can use Voice of the Sands and bring something else out. So that could be pretty convenient as well. It's got the attack Spiral Buzz. For 4 energy, you can do just 80 damage if you flip tails right away, so it's not that great. But if you have Victini, which we do, you can flip again and see if you can get some more damage output. So for 4 energy, doing 80 plus 30, 110, with only like 1 heads and then 1 tails, which is pretty likely. It's not that great, but you can slap a muscle band, and yeah, you can do a little more, but we're still going to go with it. We're just going to wing it. We're going to try to use Spiral Buzz and see what we can do with Flygon EX. Now, what I'm going to use is Hydreigon, and this was reprinted in Legendary Treasures, and you can see Hydreigon here's got the ability Dark Trance. As often you like during your turn before your attack, you may move a Darkness Energy attached to one of your Pokemon to another Pokemon, but we're going to be using Rainbow Energy and the new Double Dragon Energy. Since the Double Dragon Energy, when it's attached to a Dragon Pokemon, it counts as any type of energy. So technically, we can Dark Trance 2 energies in 1 card. That is pretty sweet. And again, Hydreigon is a pretty viable attacker. We can use Hydreigon to take out Pyroar. We can use it to take out Donphan in 1 shot. Things like that too. So you never know. Dragon Blast could be a pretty useful attack, and we'll have to wait and see. So besides that, we do have 1 Spiritomb here. This could be very good for blocking Genesec's G-Booster, or let's say you run into an Exeggutor deck that locks you from supporters. You can use Hexed Mirror, and that can allow you to draw into a new hand. So I'm playing this as more of a tech. You guys can add whatever card you want as a tech too. We'll have 2 Victinis since the flipping is so crucial. Victory Star here can allow us to flip again. You guys all know Victini here. Fliptini, right? Everybody knows Victini. We have Virizion EX. I figured why not, since we're playing Rainbow Energy and Double Dragon Energy. We can block special conditions with Virizion EX. And it could just be, just a really nice card to have, a tech card. And you can slap a muscle band and, with a grass energy and a fighting energy or whatever, you can do Emerald Slash for grass weak Pokemon, Blastoise, things like that. You never know either. We have 1 Jirachi here for Stellar Guidance, a little bit of a consistency card for searching out our supporters. And then we have the Mr. Mime to protect the Jirachi and protect the Victini, since those Pokemon are pretty weak on HP. And, of course, just protect the bench overall. Onto the item cards and whatnot, we have Computer Search as the aspect of choice. We have 3 Max Potions. Since we have Dark Trance, we can always move the energy away, and then Max Potion with no questions asked, no negative effects at all. We have Rare Candy here, 2 of these just for the Hydreigon line. We'll be running a 3-2-3 line, by the way, so only 2 Rare Candies. In case of Seismitoad, we don't want to rely on Rare Candy so much. We've got 1 Switch here, and then we got Ultra Ball. 3 of these. We got VS Seeker, a couple of these, and now on to the supporters. You might be thinking, why won't you play Wally since you're playing, Stage 2 line? Well, I'm not playing Wally because I don't have any Wallies yet, and so I can't play Wally yet. I have yet to really open. I mean, I got some Wallies, but I don't know. We're gonna go with this setup anyways. We got 2 Lysanders, 1 Lysander trump card. And 3 Ends, 1 Professor Birch's Observation, 4 Juniper, and 1 Skyla. Skyla could be pretty useful for finding the rare candies and stuff like that. And then for the stadium of choice, I'm going to be going with Fairy Garden, giving us free retreat since we'll be using the Rainbow Energy and Double Dragon Energy. So we got lots of energies to use and play as a Fairy Energy, and so we can use that and maneuver all our Pokemon around. So it could be pretty cool. We've got Muscle Band, 3 of these, and here is the 4 Rainbow Energy, 2 Fighting Energy, 2 Grass Energy, and 2 Dragon Energy. That's it for the deck. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action on Pokemon TCG Online. Okay, looks like we're playing against the Iron Bat, and oh wow, I think I've played the Iron Bat before on our YouTube channel here, and I'm excited to see what the Iron Bat is going to be playing. My opponent says good luck, and we will reply you as well, you too. So here we go. We're playing against, it looks like we see a DCE, we see a Grass Energy. Not too sure what that could be. Well, we start off with our Flygon EX. My opponent says thanks. And oh boy, this is a Rayquaza EX. Wow, these Rayquaza EXs are pretty brutal. They're very dangerous. I'm going to start off with playing the Double Dragon Energy. We'll play the Muscle Band for now. And might as well just use the computer search and then play the Juniper. Let's go ahead and we'll discard the Max Potion and Rare Candy. And I think at this point, what I want to do is either want to start off with a Dino or, I don't know, maybe... that's probably the best choice. Let's take a look at the deck really quick, just skim through it a little bit. We can see we have most of the cards that we need to be effective. So let's go ahead, we'll put the Dino on the bench. We have the Victini as well. We even get the as well as we'll play the Victini for now, and we will just pass the turn. What can be extremely dangerous here with this Rayquaza is that, you know, we can see something like a turn 1 Mega Rayquaza. That can definitely happen. And there it is, an Ultra Ball discarding the energy card. Oh boy, so we could see a Mega Turbo. So we could see something like a turn 1 Emerald Break. That would be insane. That would be really cool if we could see that as well. We could see the power. There it is. There's the Rayquaza. And if we see the Spirit Link, there is the, oh my goodness, there's Spirit Link. And my opponent won't end the turn. Oh my gosh. We see the Rayquaza. We see a Jirachi. Oh wow, my opponent is getting everything. We even see a Winona. That means my opponent can get a Shaman EX and then draw into a nice hand size. Well, Jirachi and Shaman are a nice 1-2 punch, and along with the Mega Rayquaza. Oh my goodness, my opponent has all these full arts already, and there's the Rayquaza. My opponent plays the Shaman with setup. My opponent draws into 6 cards. We see an Ultra Ball. We can see my opponent thinning my opponent's hand a little bit more, probably getting ready to play the Shaman. We can even see the Sky Stadium. Oh my goodness, my opponent gets in. It's gonna get the Altaria going. We see the Shaman play again. There's the Altaria with the ability, the Delta ability. And, oh wow, we even see a computer search that can go for a DCE, or it can go for a Mega Turbo. Who knows? Oh my gosh, here is the DC. Oh my goodness, a Mega Turbo. And my opponent's going to hit us for 150. Turn 1 Emerald Break. That is utterly impressive. Let's go ahead and we'll just play the Dino. We'll just evolve here to this Wellis. And this is not looking good. This is not looking good at all. I mean, we could play the Muscle Band, might as well. And I don't want to play an end, giving my opponent more cards. Let's go for the Juniper. We'll Via Seeker for that. And we do get a Max Potion. So if we can... I think what I want to do is retreat. We can probably just sacrifice a Dino or even another Victini. Maybe not the Victini. But ideally what I want to do is... I kind of want to... I'm in a little bit of a top deck mode. I'm risking it here. If we can retreat into the Dino, maybe it's what I don't know. What I really want off the end, if we can pull off a Hydreigon, right? So if we can retreat and my opponent doesn't play a Lysander, then what can happen is we can potentially, I mean, if we get really lucky with flips, we can knock it out one shot, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. But let's, I mean, all right, so let's go ahead. We can retreat into the Flygon, or we'll just go with the Dino, because, you know, if we retreat into the Flygon, my opponent can still knock it out with countering the Stadium and things like that, and we're just going to pass and then the turn. I'm going to hang on to the Victini. Kind of don't need that. Oh, thank goodness I didn't play the Victini. My opponent could have got 10 cards. Can you imagine having the Sky Stadium? Oh, there is the Sky Stadium. Speak of the devil. My opponent can now put 8 Pokemon, and that is ridiculous. We see, wow, Rayquaza is getting powered up. We see another Shaman. My opponent can draw into, well, my opponent's already got a really big hand size. And we see the Virizion EX. We get hit for 240 damage, and as of right now, I mean, I don't know. We'll play the double dragon energy. I have a max potion, but I definitely can't play that. Let's go ahead. We'll play, before we play the end, I'm going to play the Victini. That way we just thin out the deck a little bit. And wow, we were able to get everything we need. We got the Hydreigon. We can Dark Trance, move the energy onto our Flygon on the bench, play the max potion with the Flygon in the active spot, and we even counter the stadium. My opponent will probably remove the Shamans. There it is. There's 1, 2, 2, 3 Shamans. My opponent goes down to 4 cards. Probably didn't need to do that, but let's go ahead. We'll Dark Trance again, and there it is. The double dragon energy onto our Flygon EX. Dragon versus dragon. We can definitely do Voice of the Sands, but I'm just gonna attack, and we flipped for 1 head. Let's flip again. Oh my goodness, we flipped 4. Whoa, what? We were able to hit 220 damage, 4 heads. Wow, my opponent says, what? And oh my gosh, that was pretty cool. I wouldn't really know what to do now at this point. My opponent plays a Professor Sycamore. My opponent's down to 14 cards. We see a Vulpix. My opponent definitely trying to take over the stadium battle with locking the stadiums in with everything. And there it is. My opponent concedes the match, but wow, that was really impressive. That was a fantastic show by my opponent with the Mega Rayquaza. Sadly, my opponent conceded. That was a really good deck. Really cool. We got to see a turn 1 Mega Rayquaza Emerald Break. Wow, that is intense. That's the things that Pokemon players dream about to pull off, and amazingly, my opponent was able to do that in turn 1. We got to see a great show. I definitely need to applaud my opponent. Got to go and shake the guy's hand, tip my hat off to him. Very impressive. Those are things that I feel like a lot of players, they wanted, like Charizard to do, turn 1 Combustion Blast, things like that. But to see, the power of Mega Rayquaza, I'm definitely going to be building a Mega Rayquaza deck in the future, so I'm going to be looking forward to that. We do get some some tickets. I'll take that. I'm kind of low on tickets anyways. And let's take a look here. We got wait and see. We will be playing against Chaos Gym, and Chaos Gym is playing a variety of Pokemon, so who knows what this could be. Perhaps it could be, we see Archies, we see a Grass Energy, Water Energy. It could be a Flareon deck, or it could be maybe an Exeggutor deck. If it's an Exeggutor deck, my opponent starts off with an Execute. Could still be a Flareon deck. And we see an Acrobike. We gotta wait and see what my opponent discards. We might get a clue from there. And it's a Dragalge. Okay, this is definitely gonna be an Exeggutor deck. Man, it's a struggle to play against these Exeggutor decks. Very, very difficult to pull off wins when they get it going. They just lock your supporter, and my deck actually runs pretty heavy on the supporter side, and so it's a challenge to really get anything going whatsoever. And all right, so now it's our turn. We got a couple things that we can. I don't know. We start off with a Mr. Mime. That's not really the best thing to do. We do have an N. We got a Juniper, a Skyla. My opponent really didn't do anything. I can definitely play an N. I want to hang on to my stadium so I can counter my opponent's stadium whenever they play, their stadium. So we're gonna start off. We'll just go ahead. We'll play with the Skyla and maybe just get the Ultra Ball so we can get the. I think we need to get Virizion going. If we can get Virizion going, I'll feel pretty good about Hypnotoxic Laser and things like that. Decks like these always play Virbank and Laser Bank. So let's go ahead. We're going to search out for the Virizion, and we see we got a couple Dinos there. And oh my goodness, we discarded our only Hydreigon. The other 2 Hydreigons are in the prize cards, and that's a little bit depressing. But here's the thing, too. I'm skeptical about playing the Rainbow Energy because my opponent can always just play Enhance Hammer. Decks that play Exeggutor play a very heavy line of Crushing Hammer and Enhance Hammer. We see my opponent already discarding the Dragalge, so I'm just going to pass the turn. And I think I might regret that. I might regret not playing the energy, but at the same time, my opponent, these kind of Exeggutor decks, they have... a variety of different tactics to slow you down, lasers and crushing hammers. A lot of very flippy, very flippin' deck. So my opponent didn't do anything either. We didn't really see much of anything from my opponent. We just see a hypnotoxic laser and a pass. Looks like my opponent, maybe if my opponent has Exeggutor Gym, my opponent could be hanging on to it for the stadium war, the stadium battle, but gotta wait and see what my opponent has in store. Very peculiar. It makes me very worried about what my opponent can actually do, and you know, it concerns me, right? I mean, so let's just go ahead. We'll put the energy on to the Virizion. I think that'll be pretty good, and we could go for the N, or I could just play the. This is pretty tough. Let's take a look. Our discard pile, I don't know. We could go for another Skyla. But you know, let's just go for the Juniper. And we can see here we got the Flygon. We also got a Victini. And that's it. We'll pass the turn. We actually have a really bad hand. We have a Lysander trump card and a Lysander. It's not really useful. And oh, look at that. My full art Juniper is having a hard time loading. Excuse me. So that's not a good sign. Usually when I see, oh my goodness, oh, my opponent plays the Enhanced Hammer, should have saw that coming. See, I knew it. I knew my opponent has a bunch of these Enhanced Hammers, and I knew I shouldn't have played it. I don't know. At some point, you got to play it anyways. That way your opponent is forced to play. I'd rather have my opponent discard the Rainbow Energies rather than discarding my Double Dragon Energies. The Double Dragon Energies are a little bit more important. And so I'm gonna go ahead. We'll play with the. We're gonna go with a Grass Energy instead. I think that way it'll be a little bit more difficult for my opponent to discard it, since Enhanced Hammers are just like an automatic discard. Versus, you know, the non-special energies, the basic energies. My opponent will need to use Crushing Hammer, and we'll have to flip for that. But anyways, I mean, there's nothing too much going on here. I'm just going to go ahead and play the Lysander, maybe stall my opponent. My opponent will need to burn an energy to retreat, so that's kind of the strategy behind that. That way my opponent would still, I don't know, it slows my opponent down a little bit, and oh my goodness, my opponent goes for a Crushing Hammer and even gets heads. Ooh, man, that's pretty devastating. Now we are not in a very good position. We see an Ultra Ball, so I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, let's go ahead. We're going to play, I don't know. Do I want to play the Rainbow Energy? I could. See, the thing is, we haven't seen my opponent do much at all. I don't want to play, you know, an N for sure, because my opponent would draw into a better hand. So let's just go ahead. We'll play, might as well just play the Computer Search, get the Professor Juniper, and draw into a fresh hand. We do get the switch, so that's pretty good. And I'm going to switch into the Flygon. That way we can use our ability in case my opponent decides to retreat, pay the energy cost, and retreat into the Exeggutor. I can go ahead and yeah, just use the ability, Voice of the Sands, and force my opponent to switch out. And oh my goodness, my opponent plays a Lysander. Darn it. And there it is. There's my opponent playing a switch. Oh man, we're going to get hit with a blockade. Now we can't even use our Lysander. And that's it. We just got to pass the turn. Our poor Mr. Mime will pass out. And pretty disappointing the way that played out. No, I can't use Voice of the Sands. We see the Scrap over there. We get hit again. Now, at the very least, we can. Even if we use Voice of the Sands, my opponent will play the energy, and we'll just burn that to retreat. But I mean, might as well do it now than do it later. So let's go ahead. We'll just do that. And so it forces my opponent to at least burn more energies on the Skrelp that never attacks, that never really does anything. So we gotta wait and see. Does my opponent have the energy drop? If my opponent does, we could see another energy drop on the Skrelp and then see the retreat into the Exeggutor. And then we'll probably get hit with a blockade. At times like these, I wish I had a hard charm. And so my opponent uses a VS Seeker, probably going for the Lysander again. That could bring out the Victini. And we could see something like a Hypnotoxic Laser with Very Big City Gym, that, and you know, and even Muscle Band, something like that. That could be a really quick knockout for the Victini. But I don't think my opponent has that. My opponent only has 3 cards, and there it is. There is 10 damage on the Victini. We got a Max Potion. I'm going to hang on to that. Maybe we'll use it on the Victini if my opponent keeps using Blockade and we just keep getting blockade till we faint. I'm going to go ahead and just hang on to that max potion. We see an Ultra Ball, probably going for another Exeggutor. We see 2 Empoleons get discarded. Hopefully that last card is not Archie's, hidden. I was thinking Maxie's hidden ball trick, but Archie's, man, I can't remember what Archie does. Archie's secret technique, I'm not sure. We see the energy drop on the Execute. Oh, that's it. The Victini gets hit. And, oh boy, this is kind of a dull, a stagnant game. This is the problem with these kind of lock decks, I mean, I know it's the style, I know it's the technique of the game. Same with Seismitoad, same with Exeggutor. It's kind of the game plan. And my opponent definitely, the game plan for my opponent is in full effect here. We see the Hypnotoxic Laser, we see blockades. The only thing missing is a Verbank City Gym and a Muscle Band. If that happens, then we are definitely in danger. So can't really do much right now. I have 2 max potions, so that's kind of nice. We can just go ahead. We'll just max potion the Victini, try to survive a couple more turns. If my opponent has the Muscle Band plus Verbank City Gym, then yeah, it's pretty much a knockout, and it was kind of a waste for the max potion, but not exactly a waste, since it bought us a turn for Victini to kind of stand out there and hold Victini's ground for us. We do have a double dragon energy that we can use, and so I think that'd be pretty viable. We see my opponent has a Lysander's trump card. We could see my opponent play that. Wow, my opponent has a bunch of random receivers. We don't see random receivers get played too much anymore. I'm going to go ahead and play the Spiritomb in case we can play Hexed Mirror, and we can allow us to draw and just refresh our hand. That could be pretty handy. Plus, it shuts my opponent off from playing Computer Search. Did my opponent already play Computer Search? I think my opponent did. So that means we shut ourselves off from playing Computer Search, which is a bit of a bummer. I opted not to play the double dragon energy. Because I'd rather have my opponent play the Enhance Hammer on the Rainbow Energy than the Double Dragon Energy. I think the Double Dragon Energy is a little bit more valuable, and if we were to see an Enhance Hammer play, I would not want my opponent to play and discard the Double Dragon Energy. I think the Double Dragon Energy would be much better suited waiting and to see the Rainbow Energy get discarded, and then we can see, because the benefit of playing the Double Dragon Energy is that it'll just take 2 turns to drop 2 Double Dragon Energies, and then I can start attacking. But again, that's kind of unlikely, and it's pretty difficult to see that happen. And if you can hear in the background, that's my nephew. He's playing Cars right now. So, and there it is. There's the Double Dragon Energy. Dang, now I regret not playing it earlier. I should have played it. But we probably could have started attacking, but hopefully my opponent does not have an Enhance Hammer. If my opponent doesn't have an Enhance Hammer, then we should be in good hands. But if anything, I don't want to see my opponent evolve. That would be pretty devastating, but we could see just a retreat, right? The Execute's only got a 1 retreat cost, so we could see my opponent retreat into the Exeggutor and continually blockading us. One thing I'm really just crossing my fingers for is to not have. Oh, look, this looks like my opponent didn't play Computer Search yet. But anyways, good thing my opponent discarded that. I just hope my opponent doesn't have any Enhance Hammers. If we see Enhance Hammers, then we're pretty much done for. Otherwise, even if we flip Tails, we'll get 1-hit knockouts, right? Since we have the Muscle Band, we'll just go ahead and just go for 1-hit knockouts on everything on my opponent's side of the field. My opponent does not have anything greater than 100 HP right now. Unless, of course, my opponent gets the Empoleon, then I'll have to kind of cross my fingers and hopefully I flip heads a couple times. But for now, we see my opponent play a VS Seeker going for a Professor Juniper. I think that was a Juniper. Does my opponent play Sycamore or Juniper? I can't remember. I'm not really paying attention to what my opponent has. Probably I should. Well, I'm not paying attention to what kinds of cards my opponent has, right? So if my opponent had a secret rare VS Seeker, I wouldn't really care for that. But I mean, hey, it's kind of cool. So here we go. We see the Exeggutor once again in the active spot. My opponent can definitely go and hit us for a blockade, and we see the Execute again being propagated into my opponent's hand. And there it is. We see the Lysander's trump carding both those Empoleons and everything back into my opponent's hand, or to my opponent's deck. We get some of the things back too, some things that aren't exactly useful. And I mean, things like supporters. And so, oh man, dude, the Lysander looks pretty cool. I never really talked about the art, but it looks like Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys are comic book fans, but Dr. Octopus has those tentacle, I don't know, those kind of things. And all right, so my opponent is at 17 and 18 minutes. That's maybe one way we can win if my opponent runs out of time. But let's go for the Spiral Buzz. Wow, that's overkill. We did not need to see 3 heads, but hey, we got it anyways. We see another full art Juniper that's more like white out Juniper. My opponent brings out the Execute. We could see my opponent evolve right now. My opponent goes for Hypnotoxic Laser, which won't work since we have the Flygon EX on the bench. We see another Execute right there, and I have no idea what that is. Oh, that's a Juniper. All right, anytime we see a full art nothing, it's either Juniper or a Ultra Ball. That's basically what I have concluded. Here we go. My opponent counters the Stadium. And my opponent even goes for a Battle Compressor that can get out maybe another egg, or who knows what my opponent wants to get out. Maybe just thinning out my opponent's deck a little bit more. My opponent has 36 cards. And so the likelihood of winning by decking my opponent out is nearly impossible. And the only way to win for my opponent decking out is if my opponent forgets to use VS Seeker on the Lysander trump card, and my opponent ends up decking my opponent out. So again, one viable option would be timing my opponent out. We'll have to see. That would be very dull and very anticlimactic. But we see my opponent go for a VS Seeker. That could definitely go for another Juniper. It could go for, I don't know, maybe an N. I don't see that happening, though. And it goes for a Lysander's trump card. That's a little peculiar. Either that or my opponent probably wants to go for an N and ensure that the Lysander's trump card will be in the deck. And that way my opponent would ensure never decking out. That's actually a possibility. Or, I don't know, maybe my opponent wants to play Lysander's trump card in the next turn. And, I mean, all I have is a Fairy Garden. I mean, go ahead and play the Lysander's trump card. Be my guest, Like, if I can get my my only one of 2 stadiums back in my deck, that'd be fantastic. Anyways, my opponent doesn't do anything else and passes the turn. We have a absolutely wonderful opportunity to just go and knock out this. Wow, we got 7 heads, 310 damage. That knocks out just about anything, including the Black Curum with Crystal Wall. I thought about playing. I could have played the energy on the Virizion or the what is that? The Spirit Tomb. In case my opponent plays a Lysander, I can play the energy and retreat. So I also could have played the Double Dragon energy in case my opponent has a bunch of Enhance Hammers. So there's kind of those kind of scenarios. So I got to keep a watchful eye for playing my energies. At the same time, I would love to invest all my energies on Flygon EX in case if my opponent plays a ton of hammers. I really don't want to be. That's the problem here. We're playing so many special energies that, my opponent can just play 4 Enhanced Hammers, and then we're done. It's like, oh, what? 4 Enhanced Hammers? What the heck? Or even Crush Hammers. My opponent flips heads 4 times in a row. That's insane. And there it is. My opponent gets the energy onto the egg on the bench. And we can use supporters right now. I can play an N, but that'll be silly. I don't want to really get N into 4 cards. I really like my hand right now. I don't know. We could definitely play the Juniper. I mean, we'll be discarding a lot of, the only 2 rare candies we have. So I'm just going to go ahead. We'll just knock out this egg and don't really care about flipping heads right now. So we draw into another basic one of 2. We have the 2 only fire energies that we have, not fighting energies, I mean, and we have both of them in our hands. And we see the Execute here with the water energy drop. We could see something like the Exeggutor coming out into play and then hitting us with a blockade again. Not that it really matters. We have a really nice hand, but my opponent can always play an N, and the N can definitely disrupt us. We'll be down to 3 cards. And, with 3 cards, we wouldn't really, I mean, depending on what we draw, I mean, who knows, we could draw into the last dragon, the Double Dragon energy, or some more energy cards, things like that, who never knows. And my opponent plays a Lysander's trump card, and I think I called it earlier. My opponent plays it, and we see the garden, the Fairy Garden, get back into our deck. I mean, we're at 37 cards, and so that's a pretty thick deck. My opponent's at 43, and there we go. We see the Exeggutor with the The Ultra Ball, discarding. I'm not sure what my opponent discarded, but the Execute hits the field again. We're going to get hit with a blockade. No Hypnotoxic Laser, no Muscle Band so far. My opponent won't be able to use Hypnotoxic Laser anyway with the Virizion on the bench. So right now, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. We're just going to go ahead. We'll play the Energy in case we see something like a bunch of Crushing Hammers. And we'll just take out this Exeggutor. And oh boy, this is a really long match. And oh my goodness, I'm getting tired. We see the egg again. At some point, we could see a Lysander bringing out the Spiritomb. I should really hang on to these energies for the Spiritomb or for the Virizion in case of a Lysander. But at the same time, like, again, there's that fear of like, my opponent can play a bunch of hammers. Because my opponent played Lysander's trump card again, so that means the hammers are back in my opponent's deck. And we could see these hammers come out at any point, you know. If I'm really lucky, the rest of the hammers are prized. That'll be sweet. And so I highly doubt that's the case. So I don't know. I'm utterly paranoid that there's going to be a ton of hammers, and there's the Dragology. It wouldn't really matter. Dragology is just kind of a waste of space right now with the awesome Rayquaza EX on the bench. We see, oh my goodness, we get End, and we do get the Victini. So I can hang on to the Grass Energy. I would love to. I think I'd like to hang on to it, but I think the best move would be to hang on to the Grass Energy, but at the same time, it's just too tempting to play the Grass Energy on the Flygon, right? So we have a Fighting, we have a Rainbow, and then we have 3 Dragon Energies. Meaning, if my opponent decides to discard all 3 Dragon Energies, and if we have the Grass Energy on the Flygon EX, it would only be one more turn that we can start attacking again, since we already have, well, not really one more turn, we also need to top deck another energy. But right, I mean, the possibility of my opponent having 3 Enhanced Hammers is unlikely. I can see my opponent having 2 and maybe a Crushing Hammer. I don't know. That's all kind of a risk, right? So I'm leaning towards playing the Grass Energy on the Flygon. Once it hits our turn, I'm gonna play it. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And we can't even play our computer search. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll just play it there, and I'll put the Victini on the bench. We don't even need Victini, and let's go ahead. We'll flip again anyways, and of course that's not even necessary. We hit for 100 damage. That's a knockout on the Execute, and we'll take our last prize. We get a Hydreigon here. That's kind of cool. Here is the Execute once again, and my opponent goes for a random receiver, and let's take a look at what my opponent got. We see, what is that? I think it's probably a Juniper. It was just all white, so it's a Juniper. And yeah, it's a Juniper indeed. We'll get a blockade again, I think. If my opponent has the Exeggutor, we'll get another blockade. But I mean, I don't know. Oh, my opponent gets a Virizion over there too. We have yet to see the Genesect. There's a Genesect. There's 2 of the Empoleons. We see a Jirachi, and my opponent plays a random receiver for another Juniper. My opponent retreats into the Virizion. So if we get really lucky here, we can probably one-shot this Virizion, but that's highly unlikely. We're gonna have to flip at least 3 heads to hit for 190. Yeah, I mean 3 heads is kind of a long shot. I can see us hitting 1. Either way, it's going to end up being a 2-hit knockout on the Virizion. And I have a feeling my opponent plays a bunch of eggs and only 1 Exeggutor. Either that or all the other Exeggutors are prized. That would be pretty cool. Because my opponent had to play Lysander's trump card to get the Exeggutor back. It seems like that was the case. It seems like my opponent only plays 1 Exeggutor. Or maybe 2 right now, and maybe the rest is prized. I don't know. But we see the Virizion here. It's a nice full art Virizion. And we do get the Fighting Energy. Might as well play it on here. I don't think my opponent has a Lysander. We just saw my opponent go for the what would you call it? The random receiver twice for Junipers. I think my opponent's going to be playing another Juniper. I mean, my opponent has a really big hand size, so I mean, you know, we're in really good shape, right? If my opponent has 3 Enhanced Hammers, we can still attack, right? And that's kind of, oh my goodness, there is the stinking Lysander. Oh, the whole time I was like, he doesn't have the Lysander. He, she, who knows? Chaos Gym, right? Doesn't have the Lysander. And what do you know? Chaos Gym has a Lysander. Oh man, we could have finished this if I held on to the energy. And that was a huge mistake. I should have held on to at least 1 energy, but The reality of with all the trouble of enhanced hammers and crushing hammers, I think in hindsight I probably should have not have worried too much about it, but now I regret it because I can't even play my computer search for an energy. My opponent goes for a battle compressor. That can definitely thin out my opponent's deck a little bit more. We have 42 cards in our deck. Wow, 42. Oh man, that's like a brand new start to a brand new game right there. If we had all 6 prizes, that is. But our Flygon right now is absolutely jacked. I think one thing that's good to know is I don't think my opponent plays Mewtwo EX. We have a ton of energy on our Flygon. If my opponent had a Mewtwo with just a DCE drop, or even like Dimension Valley and a single energy, I think that might be able to knock it. That would knock out. We have 10 energies on our Flygon EX. 10. Wow, that is insane. 10 energies. If my opponent had the Mewtwo EX with only 1 energy, my opponent would be able to knock us out really quick. And there we go. We see a crushing hammer. There we go. Here comes the hammers, folks. And there's the enhanced hammers discarding the double dragon energy. I totally saw that coming. And hopefully we don't see any more than that. We only saw 2 hammers so far. And I wonder, maybe this isn't a very typical egg build. Most typical egg execute builds they run like 3 enhanced hammers or 2 enhanced hammers, and then absolutely they have to have 4 crushing hammers. So far we've only seen 1. I mean, that's about it. Here we go. We do have a supporter here, which we can play, and disappointingly we don't have any energy cards. Well, we do have a max potion. Yeah, we can play it on the Virzian. Might as well play it on the Virzian and heal off 10 damage. We got another Victini here in case this one gets knocked out. We do have a Via Seeker. We can always get the Juniper back. We have an Ultra Ball. Might as well discard this, thin out the deck a little bit. And who knows? Maybe let's just get the Dino. That way we can, at some point, maybe off the Juniper, we can get a Rare Candy and a Hydreigon. That way we can Dark Trance the energy and move it over to the Victini and then play the Retreat. We also have a Fairy Garden we can play. I decided not to play the Fairy Garden just yet. I mean, I probably could have played it, but I want to play it when I want to actually retreat. And so we're going to put it up to chance if we can top deck another Rainbow Energy. Yes, I know we did put the Victini in harm's way, but that's only 1 prize. I thought, the Valley of Victini, got another Victini on the bench. We should be pretty good shape right now. So, I mean, definitely we could see something like a switch and then an energy drop. There's a Muscle Band on the Execute. We could see an Exeggutor get hit for a blockade. And that would be very devastating. And nope, my opponent goes for a Lysander's trump card. Not sure what that's about. It looks like my opponent only has 1 Exeggutor. Maybe the other 3 are prized. That would be very, very devastating for my opponent. And by golly, we got really lucky this matchup. Because my opponent seems to not be able to draw really good hands. Just couldn't really draw into good hands. So we don't get the we don't get the Rare Candy or Hydreigon, nor do we get anything else. We do get a switch, so let's go ahead. We'll just do that, and we'll go for the win. And GG it is. And wow, that was a very long battle, very epic battle. But again, very tiring. And all right, so we get 25 coins off of that. I'll take that any day. And 28 coins total. We are done for today. I think I'm good. So wow, that was a very long match. Those eggs, I tell you, they slowed the game down. They're just as bad as Seismitoad. I don't know, which one do you like more? Which one do you hate more? I think I hate both almost evenly. Maybe I don't know. I might dislike Seismitoad a little bit more because the HP is just too darn high. And but hopefully you guys enjoy the video. If you guys have any deck ideas, shoot them my way and I'll see if I can build them. Remember, hashtag please build this deck, or build this deck please. And yeah, you guys take care, have a wonderful day, subscribe, and give the video a thumbs up. See you later. Goodbye.